11 minutes past 8. Let's talk politics now. Co-leader of the Greens, Russel Norman, joining us this morning. Morning, Russell.
Morning, Wammo.
Morning. Now, today you're going to be launching the For a Richer New Zealand campaign in the lead-up to the election and promising 100,000 extra new jobs.
Yeah, that's right. We're launching our Green Jobs Package, which is really part of a broader green economic plan, and it kind of covers a whole bunch of areas, looking at the kind of green economic transition and opportunities that are available to us.
So 100,000 new jobs, that's quite a lot. What's the current unemployment rate at the moment?
Well, depends what number you read, but let's say it's roughly 5%. It's probably a little bit more when you look at underemployment. So, some of that is what you might call is kind of a little bit of a structural unemployment. That is, you're always going to have a little bit of unemployment as people move around in the job market.
Yeah.
But there's definitely scope there for some further job creation. And so what our focus is particularly on looking at the opportunities created by the kind of the global green economy, particularly in renewable energy.
So what kind of, renewable energy, but what does that actually mean? Having a factory producing wind turbines, what does it practically mean on the ground?
Probably the best opportunity for New Zealand is in geothermal. We've got a lot of expertise in geothermal. We built the second big geothermal plant in the world in Whirinaki, and not at Whirinaki, where was it? No, I've got that wrong. But we built the second big geothermal plant in the world, and that's probably one of the major opportunities we have is in expanding both the production of geothermal, if you like, manufacturing for export, but also particularly the technology and the expertise. We've got a lot of expertise in running geothermal.
Okay. 100,000 jobs in geothermal? The global renewable electricity sector, or renewable energy sector rather, is currently running at about nearly 300 to 400 billion a year. It's projected to go to about maybe 600, 700, 800 billion by 2015. If we could get 1% of that market, it would make a significant difference in New Zealand in terms of jobs, a huge difference. But what would geothermal energy... geothermal energy would only just power our grid here in New Zealand, wouldn't it?
There's a lot of geothermal opportunity overseas. We're already actually exporting geothermal. So we've just recently been exporting some to Southeast Asia. We've done some elsewhere. We also have we've been exporting some wind technology overseas.
So that means setting up the power stations overseas?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
The advantage we have is that we've got so much experience in renewable electricity compared to, only Iceland comes near us, really. Obviously they do better than us. But, having the experience in running a renewable grid and a renewable electricity sector is very valuable. And we need to work off that to generate jobs in New Zealand.
Mm. What about solar? Does this feature in there anywhere?
New Zealand doesn't have a lot of expertise in solar. It's not really been part of our profile because we've had a lot of other options. Certainly solar is going to be a part of it. It's just what we don't know is how big a part of it, and it's not something you'd identify that New Zealand would necessarily have expertise in.
Mm. So I'm still struggling to get my head around it, though, because these sound like really highly skilled jobs. Am I correct?
Yeah, so some of the proposals we're putting forward are highly skilled jobs like that. And fortunately, we've already got a big geothermal industry, so it can expand. The heavy engineering research association's done quite a bit of work looking at what we've already got here, which is quite a lot. But then there's also, when you think about the other kinds of jobs like riparian, fencing and planting, along the sides of streams, there's also jobs for different kind of skill levels, if you like. So we need to look at jobs across the skill levels.
But is it stuff that produces stuff that we can sell overseas? Apart from this, the geothermal and wind technologies. Doing riparian planting, obviously very nice, but that doesn't make anything that we can then exchange for dollars.
Yeah, if you look at our exports, there's we've identified that there's a big opportunity in renewable energy exports, which there is. We also, an enormous part of our exports is around agriculture, and that relies on brand protection, the New Zealand Clean and Green brand. And so part of the riparian fencing and planting is about brand protection. It's also about good environmental outcomes, but it's also about brand protection for the agricultural sector, tourism and agriculture.
Right.
Our biggest export industries, if we don't protect the Clean and Green brand around those, then we'll lose our advantage. So it's certainly true that riparian planting doesn't produce exports, but it is part of protecting the New Zealand brand.
So in order for us to turn into a green economy, the technology developed around geothermal and wind power, that industry would have to end up being bigger than, say, Fonterra?
No, I mean, if you got 1% of the global market in that industry, you're probably talking something in the order of $6 to $8 billion export industry. So it's not bigger than Fonterra, but it does add another string to our bow. So that we need. Currently, we're very reliant on agricultural exports and tourism. We do have some elaborately transformed manufacturers, as they're called. So we do have a significant industry there, but we need to add to that part of our economy because that's the weak part.
Just got a question through on Twitter from David. He says, what about electric car development funding for New Zealand?
Yeah, I mean, potentially. We'll be talking about broader research and development kind of support because when you look at something like that, the issue is obviously we don't have currently any kind of competitive advantage in there. Like we don't have a huge car industry, so it's harder for us to get into that.
Yeah.
So part of it's working from our strengths and being, just got to be a bit hard-headed about it. So that's like the renewable energy stuff. But then on the other side is a broader support for more R&D because New Zealand has a very low spend on R&D, about 1.31% of GDP. And so we want to have broader support for more R&D spending.
It's a good point there because I had Rob Swan in the studio yesterday, climate campaigner and, of course, adventurer as well. And he was saying that the first Chinese electric car has just been sold in America. So that I guess they're rolling on this. In fact, he was saying that we hear all these bad stories about the pollution and whatnot in China, but they are leading the world in green technology as well.
Yeah, they're spending a fortune on it. I mean, they see it as quite important. There's two things. I mean, they kind of get the climate change impacts because it's already having a massive impact on China, and it's going to get much, much worse there.
Yeah.
But the other side of it is they're looking at the economic opportunities, which are just enormous because the green economy is growing so quickly. So they're looking at both sides of it, doing the right thing for their own self-interest, if you like, but also looking at the opportunities. So.
Okay, well, look forward to seeing some of the more details from that package later on today. Now, before you go, I just want to ask you, just had a question through on Facebook from Elaine, and she says the New Zealand Food Safety Bill is now at select committee stage. What do you know about it, and how is it going to affect us?
There's been a lot of discussion about the food bill, and Sue Kinsley's been having a good look at it, just to make sure that it doesn't restrict people's ability to barter food and to grow and share food. Now, the issue we have is that the officials say that they wouldn't pass regulations that would do such a thing. But what we're keen to do is to make sure the legislation itself doesn't provide the opportunity for officials to do such a thing, and that's what we're looking at the moment.
Why? Because they could possibly shut down farmers' markets, couldn't it?
Well, farmers' markets aren't a barter, but they could certainly put constraints on farmers' markets if you overdid some of the kind of food safety requirements. So, food safety, it's, on the one hand, it's a bit of a balance because you want to make sure that you do have sufficient standards in place for food safety. It's very important. On the other hand, you don't want to make them so burdensome so that small producers, like you get at farmers' markets, are basically driven out of business.
Yeah. And there's great ideas. People set up websites where you can find out who's got produce in your neighbourhood, and if you're growing some in your backyard, then you can go swap them online, that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, that's the bartering stuff, and we want to make sure that that's just left to flow free, because that's part of the transition towns movement and all the rest.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thank you very much, Russell.
Okay, cheers, mate.
Co-leader of the Greens.